Howdy, y'all.
And guess what? We're back.
Before we begin today, I'd like to welcome you to join Holly and I on twitch.tv/TonyLTGray. We stream live there on the weekends and are currently playing through Baldur's Gate 3, and we're about to start a Bug Snacks run with Mantha. We'd love to have you there with us. Alright, so today I wanted to take a second and send some appreciation to what is currently my favorite console ever, the Nintendo Switch. While I know I'm not alone in this thought process, the Switch is everything that I personally want in a console. I've been equally split between my gaming time on TV and handheld over the last 5 or 6 years. Something about being able to carry around a device that can produce competent graphics, has more games than I could ever play in my lifetime, and can hook up to a screen in order to offer a more conventional gaming experience really tickles my fancy. While I did buy the Switch when it first came out, my Switch Lite quickly became my best friend shortly after its release. I also performed some mods on it, which helped me dip my toes into that scene. This console spawned a new passion for gaming that I hadn't had in a while. I built up a small library of physical games and beat about 30 titles in my first year of owning that Switch. Way too much time on that. I am now gaming on the OLED model, and while that number of beaten games has definitely come down, school and work kind of take up too much of my free time, I still complete a majority of my finished games on the Switch. So today I'm going to look back, look at somewhere in the middle, and look at the present and share what I believe are the best games that you can play on your Nintendo Switch. For now. Quick disclaimer, these games are not exclusive to the Switch, and in many ways can be much better to play on PC or their original consoles. This list is also extremely fluid, and will more than likely change if you ask me about it next year. I also try to diversify the list to include a wide range of genres. I did not include any FPS on the list, as the Switch is definitely not the place to get that fix for yourself. Lastly, this list is simply my opinion based on their performance, the content that's available in-game, and their availability on this generation of the Switch. It is also in no particular order. Alright, real quick before we start the top 10 list, I did want to share a few of my honorable mentions. These games could and should be on many people's top 10 Switch lists and just narrowly missed my own. The first is Skyrim Anniversary Edition. What an absolutely amazing game. It's huge and it looks really good on the Switch, and of course the little gimmick with the Joy-Cons makes it all the more fun. It's just a little too big for my lifestyle at the moment, and I played the heck of it out of it when it first came out. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Do I really need to say anything else? Another amazing game, and one that's exclusive to the Switch. If you're a casual gamer and you're picking this up for your Switch, or for a significant other, or for a child, this game can literally keep you busy for months. Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age. With all the pixel remasters available on the Switch now, as well as the number of 3D Final Fantasy games that you can get on the Switch, there really isn't a right or wrong answer when it comes to this series. I just think that 12 looks amazing on the OLED, and is by far the best Star Wars knockoff out there. And now, without further ado,
Number 10. Diablo II Resurrected.
Kicking things off with what I would consider the king of ARPGs, Diablo as a series satisfies every bit of enjoyment that you can get out of the looter-slasher genre. If I were to include a first-person shooter on this list, it probably would have been the Borderlands series, but seeing as how this game scratched that itch for me, it narrowly edges out Gearbox's flagship series. While endlessly embroiled in controversy, there is no denying that Blizzard had perfected this genre, and Resurrected brings back that nostalgic feeling with a beautiful coat of paint. This game looks amazing on the Switch OLED and handheld mode. The series has admittedly gotten progressively easier, or more inviting, however you want to phrase it, as it has continued on, but I feel that D2 strikes that perfect balance of brief periods of mindless slaying and frustrating moments as you continually die to the same group of enemies or an overpowered boss. Given how the gear ramps up, it's also super enjoyable just to hop into a new game with a higher difficulty the second you finish the campaign. I will acknowledge that the game has a plethora of online features, however, I'm content with just playing through the campaign. I'm one of those introverts that just wants my alone time, and I'm nerdy enough to read way too far into the narratives, and I think that the story here is easy to approach and way, way too fun to overly think about. I could honestly gush for hours about the mods that were added into Diablo 1, and how the expanded story and the areas there nearly perfectly represent the isolation of remaining heroes in quotes, from the end of the first campaign are going through as we moved into Diablo 2. Or how flawed Marius is as a narrator, and how great and annoying his inclusion is to the series, but I'll just leave it at that you should definitely give this game a try for yourself. If you're playing this for your first time, I'd say you got about 15 to 25 hours to complete the campaign once, and if you really like the cycle of playing, you can play through this game for 60 plus hours, no problem.
Number 9.
Crash Bandicoot 4, it's about time.
Responding with a brazen retcon, Toys for Bob reintroduced the world to Crash Bandicoot in a big way. Crash 4 cut a lot of the fat from the misguided history of post-Naughty Dog platforming by picking up the storyline immediately after Crash 3. It's About Time is a tour de force of platforming that offers just enough of an introductory difficulty to not scare away any casual or returning gamers who may have been led away from the 3D platformer altogether. Levels and bosses flow perfectly into each other, similarly to how they worked with the islands in Crash 1. However, the bosses themselves are much more complicated and gimmicky, kind of like they were in 2 and 3. Then there's the insane ramp up in difficulty that keeps speedrunners and completionists pulling out their hair, Cortex style, as they try to finish everything that the game has to offer. The story itself is just enough fourth wall breaking humor, a welcome ensemble cast perfectly expanding beyond marsupial siblings, and a trippy duo of Entropy serving as a new, and possibly temporary, antagonist. All of these positives are matched by the quality of the voice acting and the aesthetics that the team pumped into this game, and it was definitely not applauded enough in my opinion. The colors are impeccable, and the character redesigns shine brightly on the Switch, especially in handheld mode for the OLED. And the good news? There may even be a part 5. Probably when I'm 60. There are a good number of platformers for the Switch, and I am definitely biased as a huge Crash and Spyro baby gamer, but anyone can pick up and thoroughly enjoy this pixel-perfect platformer. I had about 12 to 18 hours for a first playthrough, unless you're super amazing, and then you could probably do it in 10, or unless you're really bad at platformers, and then I would still say it's going to be like 24. They offer a lot of difficulty options, and 400 hours if you're a completionist. And yes, I'm serious. Your thumbs will hate you. And given that the Switch is portable, make sure that you have a good screen protector on yours before attempting this.
Number 8. Inscription.
Alright, here goes what may be the first controversial pick of the video. Daniel Mullen's roguelike card and deck builder was the most fun I've had with this genre to date. While I can't deny the staying power and the polish that Slay the Spire offers, I do have about 45 hours in that game as well. And the Yu-Gi-Ohs, the Magics, and the Gwents, they all have names that demand respect. This indie offers something that none of those has, and it executes its unique style of storytelling exquisitely. Inscription will have you build your deck in suspense and rage as you try to defeat Leshy in a role-playing horror adventure, which is more than likely to be filled with misplays and deaths. The best part of roguelikes is present within this game more so than any of the other genre mainstays though, as you'll actually leave the playing table, you'll actually communicate with your cards, and you'll explore the world outside of the game itself for potentially way too many hours. The best part is always the climb, and as you land that final blow on Leshy and roar in triumph, there's a feeling of elation that is completely unmatched. Until you realize that, alright, minor spoiler warning, if you want to skip ahead 5 seconds or so, do it now. You're only about a third of the way through the game. Alright, hopefully that was about 5 seconds, so welcome back everyone else. So what are you going to do? You're going to breathe, you're going to reset, you're going to learn the new rules, and you're going to go at it again. As the story expands beyond that opening script, every new development and gameplay mechanic pulled me further into this world, and I couldn't put it down until I beat everything that it had to offer me. No exaggeration, I sat in my bed and I played this game for almost 3 days, non-stop, until I beat it. The game does also offer an endless mode for Leshy, as well as challenges, and these all offer an innumerable amount of replay value on top of the 10 to 40 hours that you'll happily pump into this game for a first run. Having games like this on the Switch, portable on the go, is what makes this system one of my favorites to own of all time.
Number 7. The Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, Volume 1.
All right, let's keep the controversy rolling. If I'm not lying, it's rather unfortunate that Konami has no love for their franchises, because there's no denying the amount of prestige to the company's backlog. It includes titles like Castlevania, which, oh my god, is one of my favorites, Suikoden, and Silent Hill. And I know most companies would kill just to work with one of these franchises. Regardless of the numerous poor decisions that this company makes year after year, having this collection available on the Switch, regardless of the porting issues, is an absolute win for Switch owners. Having the first half of Kojima's brainchild available to travel with you wherever you go is honestly something that I feel he would have envisioned and wanted years ago. The games run great, and if you're not completely aware of all the tiny nuances that were taken away from these ports, you would honestly never be able to tell the difference. They also have so many goodies packed into them, as well as a number of quality life improvements. Here's looking at you, Manus. The sound design and voice acting is also top notch if you can forgive some of the more corny dialogue at some points in the game. And these games offer what I love more than anything about great games, which you may have already picked up on, which is an absolutely enthralling narrative, and it's sprinkled with all these wild ideas and moments from its creator's wacky mind, and I am 1000% here for it. Even the pricing of this collection is great for the amount of content that you get in it. If you see this game on sale at all and you've ever considered playing it or ever thought about playing it, just buy it. I guarantee you will not regret it. Each game can be beaten in somewhere between 5 and 9 hours for a total of about 25 to 50 hours for a complete casual playthrough. However, the unique ranking system offers a near endless amount of replay value and can change how you approach or dispose of some of the bosses. Such an awesome series. And you also get the fan favorite VR challenges that you can run through as well.
Number 6, Stardew Valley. Surprise! It's Holly here, with my thoughts on Stardew Valley, as Anthony isn't really much of a farming sim guy. Well, what can I say about this game besides I love it more than anything? But no, really, this game is a perfect combination of a farming sim, dungeon crawler, and RPG. Stardew Valley has a unique way of making each piece of produce from potato to parsnip feel rewarding. Every single project the player embarks upon grants a sense of accomplishment, with each upgrade, improvement, and expansion, propelling you forward into the year. Every day, the player is challenged to complete as many tasks as possible to make their farms profitable, balancing completing story quests and build relationships with the fascinating townspeople. Unlike other games, the pace doesn't feel too slow or too quick. Seasoned players find themselves pushing the limits of what can be accomplished each day without passing out from exhaustion. Aside from game mechanics such as farming, relationship development, and story quests, there is combat offered in the form of a mine shaft descending into the mountain, where players fight their way through to gather valuable resources and to upgrade tools. While this game does not compare to something like Baldur's Gate in terms of decision making, the player is also allowed to make choices and can interact with NPCs as they see fit, offering lots of replayability. The NPCs are memorable and the animals are adorable. While the ergonomics are more fitting for a PC-style playthrough, the portability of the Switch will allow you to play well into the night as the game compels you to do so. The bit-style graphics lend themselves well to the Switch. To complete the main story game, you will need to set aside almost 53 hours. However, a completionist run will likely add on 110 more hours, and with new updates to come, chances are the player may be looking at closer to 200 hours of gameplay total, making this game always well worth the price paid.
Number 5. Hollow Knight.
Alright, I almost fear the redundancy of making this selection, as there is no doubt in my mind that this is a top 10 game of all time. The notoriety around this game is overwhelmingly positive, and with good reason. Team Cherry created what may be the most enriching and rewarding world to explore in any Metroidvania ever. It is no wonder that anyone who's ever completed this game is waiting for any news at all about the sequel, which I'm sure is still coming out. Like, it is still coming, right? The cutesy aesthetic welcomes the unaware and the uninitiated into its world, slowly explaining how the bugs in this area have been struggling with an infection that is stemming from the Hollow Knight. Simple, right? Find out how to get to the Hollow Knight and stop the spread. Definitely not that easy. This game offers some of the most satisfying and intense combat that one can struggle through, set to one of the greatest soundtracks my ears have ever been graced with. Tell me that Grimm's Fight would have been as good if it didn't have the best track in the game. Oh. Much in the vein of a Souls-like, this game will see you die, then die again, then lose all your Geo, then get angry, build it all back up, and then die again, until you don't. It's that self-satisfying cycle. It feels so good, and not a beat is missed with this port. It looks amazing and it loads well, and not a single action is dropped in this adventure that requires perfection and luck more often than not. Just a self-servicing plug here as well. Holly and I are posting on this channel and play every weekend live on Twitch, as you can see in this footage, which was taken directly from one of our streams. If you wouldn't mind dropping one of the like, follow, subscribe, or share things, it would definitely be greatly appreciated. We also do other things other than gaming, like snack box reviews, and we'd love to do more of that as well. All our socials are going to be listed in the description. Thank you all so much. All right, getting back to it. So the game can easily take up to 80 hours for a casual completion, especially if it's your first time and if you're going after the quote-unquote good ending. But it could take a couple hundred hours if you're going for the canon ending. No lie, going through the Pantheon and trying to beat that, much like Crash 4, it may be more worth it just to watch the cutscene on YouTube. However, if you do give this a try, whether it's by yourself, with a friend or a significant other, or live for the memes, I promise you that you will not regret a single second of it.
Number 4, Dark Souls Remastered.
Alright, so as this list gets more and more iconic, I find myself standing more and more in awe at how this system can even begin to handle the number of games the way that it can. Like it has for so many others, FromSoft's mainstream catching masterpiece changed the way that I view and play games. I'll be the first to tell you it's not a game for everyone. I can easily admit that. However, I do still think that everyone should try it. The story of this game is presented in the series' unique method of environmental storytelling and item descriptions, meaning that you'll get as much out of its intricacies as you want to by investing time and thought, and perhaps a bit of help from Vati. The combat is extremely punishing and overwhelmingly rewarding all at once, and the number of builds that you can have in this bizarre RPG are often only limited by your own imagination. You want to run around naked and carry a giant tooth as your weapon? You got it, go for it. Want to don some wicked wizard robes and cast spells at all your enemies at once? Have at it. Patience and exploration are key though, as the more you try, the more you'll find what you like, and you go with that. Once again, visuals are amazing, especially on the OLED and handheld. And if you play with some Bluetooth speakers in handheld, you can really lose yourself in the world and its unique creatures, both friend and foe. An experience that really can only be matched by the Steam Deck at this point. There are a number of factors that will determine how long it'll take you to beat this game. Given its difficulty and the fact that the DLC is included, I would say it's a safe bet that if you're able to pick up on the combat quickly, you're looking at somewhere between 60 and 120 hours. However, given the aforementioned diversity in the builds and the challenges that the community have already established, you can spend years in this game, and I know many who have.
Praise the sun, brethren. Number 3, Hades.
Alright, so roguelikes have really become a dime a dozen over the last decade or so, and there are so many amazing ones that you would not be wrong at all to have a Gungeon, a Shovel, a Rain, a Rogue, Cell, Cadence, or Isaac roaming around your own personal top 10. However, Supergiant Games have blended combat, progression, relationship building, and narrative perfectly together inside the walls of the Greek pantheon, in my opinion. Your first couple of runs will be punishing as you adapt to the speed of the game. I think it's a much faster game on the higher end of speed for roguelikes. But while you're failing runs, you get to make casual conversations with your favorite or most hated gods. You can decorate the halls, much to your father's chagrin, and you get to pet and play with the equally adorable and terrifying Cerberus, learning more and more about your family as you attempt to escape the underworld. And that aspect is what I think separates this game from others in the genre. The team has packed so much world building into this game that it's almost unbelievable the amount of new dialogue you'll find, even several hundreds of attempts into this game. This is easily the most time I've spent on a non-exclusive title for the Switch, with about 300 hours worth of runs in it. And even with all the time I have in it, the only thing that's a little annoying is the loading time when you're first opening up the game from the opening menu of your Switch. Everything else is vibrant and lovely, and there's almost no loading times otherwise. I would strongly recommend playing this game specifically with a Pro Controller or something of that ilk, as gameplay may have you destroying your way too expensive Joy-Cons. In order to get the final ending, you're going to be looking at somewhere between 80 to 100 hours of gameplay, but afterwards you can add heat to your run, which is their difficulty progression system, or you can play community challenge runs all the way until the sequel comes out next year.
Number 2. Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Alright, let's get a little bit exclusive with these final two titles. I feel like having a Switch top 10 list without having a Pokemon game could be considered a sin, but given the recent reception of the series offerings, you could easily be forgiven for not having one on there. And if it weren't for this game, I wouldn't have one on this list myself. But PLA is the breath of fresh air that I feel Game Freak needed to add to their Monster Collection series. Fans obviously love this franchise and will buy everything that Nintendo pushes out, but this game is so different from anything else the series has to offer. This spin-off sees you traveling back in time and helping develop the first Pokédex alongside a colorful cast of characters, some new and some eerily familiar. You get to battle or simply catch a surprisingly robust number of Pokemon, with this game offering its own spattering of unique evolution lines and variants. Like all the other titles on my list, you also finally get a decently compelling narrative, with friends and foes crossing the threshold all the way up to the conclusion. While this game has so many fewer performance issues than other Pokemon titles released, all the way up to and including the recent Scarlet and Violet, you will still stumble upon an occasional hiccup. However, it is still so astounding that they were able to make these larger, open-world-esque areas with Pokemon that move and react through each area. You'll also need to strategize and plan a bit more than other mainline games, as this game can be quite difficult at times, especially with the noble Pokemon fights, which I feel is much needed. This is easily the best Pokemon game I played since the original 2 generations. That might be a tough opinion, but it's definitely mine. A campaign run will keep you grinding for about 20 to 30 hours, and a completionist run could be about 50 to 60. But shiny hunters are going to get lost in this game for hundreds of hours, as it offers the most entertaining shiny hunts in the series to date. Game Freak, please bring back our audio cues.
Number 1. Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Alright, so I know that I said that this list was in no particular order, and I do mean that. But Monolith Soft and Nintendo have given Switch owners one of the best trilogies of RPGs available. I know that this series is itself a spin-off, and that it also has one of its own spin-offs, but this trilogy offers one of the best perspective-based narratives throughout a series I've played through personally. From one's never-ending feud of Mechonis and Bionis, to 2's naive and ignorantly optimistic journey towards paradise, to 3's oppressive yet realistic views of life, mortality, and purpose, there really isn't a miss in this series. I personally feel that 3's story is the most relatable, as they have 6 main characters that fans of the first 2 games will immediately be able to find similarities with, that are able to challenge and better one another as we see their unique storylines unfold. The main storyline itself shows how dark and desperate we can be as human beings. This game offers a sprawling open world that looks and performs better than any other open world I've experienced on the Switch. Its characters are oozing with personality, and they are not one-note characters in the slightest, as each gets their own little arc to explore within the story. And yes, that includes all of the side characters as well. Speaking of those additional characters, they each give you a fighting style that you can unlock and learn and use in combat. And that combat, Xenoblade 3 simplifies but perfects the style presented in the first two games, making it so that you do need to pay attention, especially in some of the later boss encounters. However, you can farm mindlessly when you're just feeling like roaming around for goodies or trying to complete some of the side quests. I think the best part is that you don't actually need to beat the previous two in order to fully enjoy this game. However, knowledge of those first two games really enriches this one, especially the ending. I had just over 220 hours in this game before beating the main story, and I haven't been able to touch the future redeemed DLC yet, but I have only heard good things about it. Seriously, if you're into JRPGs at all and haven't tried this series, please do so ASAP. Alright, so that's it. That's my list. Like I said, I do feel this may seem a bit generic, but if you bought a Switch for the first time or are really looking for a few games to add to your collection, you couldn't go wrong with anything on this list. These 10 games could keep you busy for the next couple years, and you couldn't go wrong with a single one. I do want to thank you so much for watching and hope you enjoyed this as much as I did making it. Feel free to leave your own top 10 in the comments and stay tuned as we do plan to release more content like this in the future. See you all then, and be safe.